Hello, friends, and welcome to Pod Return to the Waking Sands. We are a Final Fantasy XIV companion podcast where we explore the lore and story of Hydaelyn and beyond. My name is Jen, and I'm joined by my co-host and researcher.
I'm Levi.
Hello, Levi.
Hello, Jen.
How's it going?
Are you ready for some more MSQ?
Boy, howdy.
Because we are playing Up to the Quest, an uninvited Ascian.
They're back.
They're back, and they're not invited.
Are they ever?
Yes. Spoiler.
I can't think of what you're referencing.
If you know, you know.
Oh my god.
But first, what happened last time, Jen?
Okay, so we started out talking to Riol of the Crystal Braves. They found out there's some kind of black marketeer that bought a whole bunch of weapons. So we intercepted the exchange, sort of. Ilberd seemed to have found a group of Duskwights that stole, or they were the clients. It turns out the weapons cache was very small. Riol talks to us because he finds the whole thing pretty weird because he's getting different stories from us and different stories from Ilberd and Yu Hase, the third and the first specifically. So something's fishy. Anyway, so we go back to the Rising Stones. Lucia, the Lord Commander's assistant, is there, and the Dragon Star is apparently going apeshit, and the guys at the observatorium are like, oh no.
Direct quote.
Yeah. So she's at, the Rising Stones to be like, you guys, can you help us out? So she's pretty adamant that we need to go and check on stuff at the Keeper of the Lake. So we do. And that's the dungeon. We do the dungeon. At the very end, we speak to a conscious entity of Midgardsormr. He's still obviously like a desiccated husk, but we speak to him. He removes our blessing of light. He refers to some kind of pact between him and Hydaelyn, we think, and gives us a little familiar of himself to keep an eye on all the goings on. And the Dragon Song War part, who knows what, is on again. And so Ishgard is preparing for that shit. And that's where we left off.
Nice. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
We resume once more in the Solar, in the Rising Stones. Moenbryda has called for a gathering of the Scions. Now that we've finished talking about dragons, she wants to talk about Ascians. So all the Scions gather in the Solar. We return to the Void of Learning. We go into a black space with 3 orbs that are supposed to represent the material world, the ethereal sea, and the space in between. Moenbryda quickly recaps metaphysics, immortality metaphysics, reminding us why the Ascians can't come back and how we're supposed to kill them. The reason they come back being that their souls do not return to the ethereal sea when they die. Instead, they return to the realm between. So to kill an Ascian, we have to trap their soul before it can escape, and that's where the white auracite comes in, to hold their souls, but only briefly. To actually kill an Ascian, we need a concentrated burst of ether, or an ethereal blade. We don't know how much ether this conceptual blade would need, and we don't have any good test subjects on hand, as in any test dummy Ascians to try it on, so we're just going to juice the blade up as much as possible and hope for the best. Ida has a brilliant idea.
Hang on a minute! Why didn't we think of this before? White auracite can hold an absolute heap of ether, can't it?
Please tell me you're joking. God's sakes, Ida. I feel as though I'm reliving the same scene over and over with you. How many times do you need to be told that white auracite cannot store ether for long periods?
The best source of banked ether, Moenbryda says, is crystals. She cites the corrupted crystal bars that we used to counter Leviathan's water powers. Everyone jokes around for a bit about how we cannot carry loads of crystals on our back all the time until an Ascian shows up.
That's obviously like a non-starter. Carrying around giant barges carried by 2 enormous seaworthy vessels. Like, that's just... But Moenbryda's like, no, we got the whole, like, land. Like, the land is full of ether. And Y'shtola is like, well, sure, but then you could totally disrupt the entire current system of ether, and then we're going to have blighted landscapes, just like here in Mordona. Remember, he's like, yes, but that's not what I'm suggesting, because I know what the consequences of that are. You know, give me some credit, bro. We have huge crags of corrupted crystal jutting out of the landscape everywhere. Mordona in particular. But, like, you know, we got options. The issue here is portability. They're stuck in the earth. It's not like we can just carry them around with us. But if we could, like, remotely tap into that power somehow, then we got a stew going.
To that end, Moenbryda has created an Aetheric Siphon. She shows us a weird wand-looking device with projecting horns and a deep black pearl at the center. This is the siphon. So apparently we can plug it into a crystal, and then we can pull that crystal's ether from malms away. But Moenbryda wants to test it somewhere that is not as crystal dense as Mordona, so that if something goes awry, she does not cause a mini calamity. She wonders, where can we find just a few crystals to test this on and not some crystal dense area? Fortunately, Alphino barges in just at this time to announce that we can find a smattering of crystals in northern Thanalan. And that place is just where he would like our assistance. Because the Imperials from Castrum Sentry in Mordona have now massed at the destroyed Castrum Meridianum in northern Thanalan, and they are reinforcing the Castrum. To aid in their rebuilding effort, they are likely to strike at the ceruleum processing plant, and Alphino wants our help to reinforce it. Moenbryda calls Alphino out on his self-serving offer of aid, but his helpful suggestion just happens to put us right where he needs us to go.
If I didn't know better, I'd say you were trying to inveigle us into fighting your battle with the promise of shiny crystals. Well then, consider me inveigled. I won't lie, the crystals you speak of sound perfect, so the Garleans have to go.
Jen, what's an inveigle?
Well, it's not a noun.
Okay, good start.
You're trying to... I mean, I think there are plenty of context clues. It's not a word we use every day. It's not a word we use every fucking decade. It rhymes with finagle, which I find interesting. You're trying to manipulate us into giving you martial assistance in exchange for access to the crystals that I need. But fine, I can fight some stuff. Very
good, Jen. To inveigle someone is to persuade them with deception or flattery.
Well, thank you, Moenbryda, for the new vocabulary word. It's pretty good.
Would you say that she inveigled us into learning a new word?
No, that was a very earnest attempt. There was no deception. There was no flattery. It was just using it in a sentence and we could all parse the meaning.
Wow.
Amazing. Well, the reason why these guys are after the processing plant is the Empire has completely abandoned the 14th Legion, and they are really running low on fumes. They're running on fumes. They need fuel. And so what they are attempting to do is run into the processing plant, steal a whole bunch of supplies just to keep their operation going. And well, like, that's not on. We're happy with them running on fumes. That would be great. So we, the Warrior of Light, Thancred, and Papalimo will join the Crystal Braves for the offensive, and Ida, Y'shtola, and Moenbryda will survey the area for like a good crystal testing spot. So we are about to head up to Northern Thanalan. Alphino was like, you gotta go on ahead of me. I'm meeting Ilbert and Ulda about some stuff. And then Hoary Boulder, Flamine, and Coltonay walk over and they're like, hey, we heard you're leaving the Rising Stones. So are we. They're just going... apparently Minfilia asked Flamine to go to Ulda to try to drum up some of her old contacts there. Because we got a lot going on, right? We got dragon drama, we got Ascian drama, we got Old Dawn drama. Like, there's shit afoot. So Minfilia's like, hey, we need every ally we can muster here. So Hoary Boulder and Coltene are going to escort Flamine to Ul'dah and just, make sure she doesn't get unalived or whatever.
Hoary Boulder declares, "Woe betide the blackguard that so much as glares in your direction, milady." He thrusts out his chest and she laughs.
He does the Hoary Boulder thing, which is great, and you'll love to see it.
So we bid goodbye to the underappreciated scions. And now the Rising Stones is shockingly empty. We just have in the common room Higiri and Tataru, who are commenting on how all of our recent guests have emptied the larders.
What, the Crystal Braves? They're eating us out of house and home?
Well, we had all the scions here, plus the Scion B Squad.
Brutal.
And the Crystal Braves.
And Moenbryda.
And Moenbryda.
I feel like her appetite is crazy.
Her appetite for alcohol is crazy.
Oh, really?
It's been a while, but yes, we got updates on her encouraging bad drinking habits amongst the scions last MSQ segment.
Oh, shit. I forgot about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they can now restore their larders and their liquor supply.
Okay. All right. So we head off to the processing plant and we meet up with Wilred.
If we want a reminder, Wilred is one of the Alamegan youths that tried to summon Rhalgr in primal form. They were being duped by Lahabrea. This was like level 30-ish. 30 or so.
Sure.
Cool. Wilred says...
Yeah, early mid 20s, actually, I would say.
Really?
Just looking at the surrounding mob levels is usually like how I
that tracks.
Kind of measure that.
I'm betting I was level 30 because of the broke-ass leveling system, but you're probably right, Jen.
Yeah, if we were doing it vanilla, just going, then yeah, we'd probably be at like 24 or something like that. We went to Little Alamigo a lot earlier than I remember the first time. Anyway, that matters not at all.
It matters very much. That's our shared history with this person, Jen.
Not what level we were. That's a separate argument. But yes, Wilred, he got by the Ascians who were like, ooh, if you get a primal, then the primal will do all your battles for you, and then Alamigo will rise again, and all this stuff.
Sure.
He's like, yeah, okay.
Not just a primal, but a primal member of the 12 of Rhalgr, which is probably both blasphemy and also bad for the land.
Yeah, well, he's a stupid child who learned their lesson, apparently.
I would say that Lahabrea inveigled him into doing his bidding.
You would be correct.
Thank you, Jen.
Yes. So he tells us that the Flames scouts observed some Imperial soldiers gathering at Rauban's Push, which is just a little bit north of where we are. Likely with their sights on the plant. Yes. So Wilred is like, because again, this is like one of those, we talk to a guy and he's like, hey, how's it going? All right, we're doing this thing. You should go check in with this person. And we check in with that person. They're like, all right, we're doing this thing. Blah, 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 blah. All right, can you go check in with this next person? Like, literally, that's what happens. It's Wilred, Edelstein, Yuhase, finally stuff happens. Okay, so now we're going to talk to Lieutenant Edelstein regarding the counter strategy, whatever. So the situation obviously is pretty tense, and it's made worse by the recent discovery of a bunch of explosives hidden in crates around the base, which they have neutralized, but they have no idea who this Imperial spy could be. Yet, anyway, but they are closely watching the Imperials' movements, and they are very likely on the verge of mobilization.
And they are, right now. It's happening.
So, but what they've noticed is that the numbers that they're assembling, they're not large enough to launch like a full-scale assault and take over the base. What they can feasibly muster with the numbers that they have is a distraction with like a main force to the north, and then they have little groups kind of sneak in, grab stuff, and then go back to the castrum. And we're like, it doesn't matter. We're not letting that shit happen.
We are tasked with informing the Scions and the Braves of news of the attack. A short distance away from Edelstein, we find the whole Scion crew and Alianne and Woolred from the Braves. If we check in with the Scions, Thancred is boasting to Papalymo that he will ensure no harm comes to the lovely Moenbryda. But Papalymo notes the massive axe on her back. She is likely capable of taking care of herself. The axe in question is the dual Haken, or Haken, I'm not sure. This is one of the weapons that you can get with the primal tokens. Moenbryda says that a woman in Revenant's Toll just gave it to her, saying that she was investing in the future. So probably Rowena.
Ah, yes.
First hit's free, Jen. Next one's going to put you in debt for life.
Yeah, stay away from Rowena.
Moving on. Alianne informs us that the main column of Garleans approaches from the crystal formation called Dalamud's Talons, though a small group is attempting to conceal an attack from the west. Now Captain Ilberd makes an appearance. Striding forth confidently, he announces that the Garleans hope we will commit our forces to the main column, allowing the detached forces to pillage supplies. A desperate strategy. So Ilberd has brought the third with him from Ul'dah. They're tired of cooling their heels, but he notes it would be ill-advised to fight near this much ceruleum. So the plan is for the fourth and for the Scions to engage the main column of Garleans, and for the third and for us, the Warrior of Light, to intercept the western approach. Plan made, we move out.
We go to report to Lieutenant Yu Hase, who kind of runs the third. And I'm immediately like, God, I just get bad vibes from this dude. Every single time we're like quote unquote working with him in particular, there's some like moment, like way back when we were looking for like the heretics and the weird merchant guy in Kurthus, and we find Yu Hase's third unit like one by one in the middle of Kurth, like just alone and struggling for no reason, and we find Yu Hase is like, yeah, I killed a guy, blah, blah, blah. Like, but okay, again, if you leave these people alone, shit happens. Weird shit happens. So I'm like, well, now what? So Yu Hase's plan here is for each of us to go after these little pockets of dudes, of Garleans, and neutralize them. And we each have an assignment. We're going to inspect these two areas over there. He's going to inspect these areas over there, etc. We're going to split up, seek out, and destroy. And I'm like, I hate that you're going off and doing something alone without like another set of eyes on you, man. But okay, I'll go do my thing.
He tells us to go alone because we're an army unto ourselves.
Like, okay. So we're not watching him do stuff.
To be fair, Jen, it's not our job to watch him do stuff.
Nope. But again, I'm like, what? I'm just waiting for the other shooter drop. Like, you know, they're gonna go do their thing, whatever that is. And then in like half an hour, there's gonna be some bullshit. And I'm like, you know what? I mean, I don't have any proof of anything. I just have vibes. I
think that their thing is to go and fight Imperials, which they will do successfully.
It still makes me nervous. I'm like, God, every time something happens where you're like, you're left to your own devices, weird shit goes. I don't know.
Anyway, I was bothered by the army unto ourselves comment because we literally just got powered down by Midgardsormr stealing our crystal energies. But we just do that thing and we wipe the floor with the Imperials as usual up here. Like, this is literally the next story step. It could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, since the cutscene where we lost our crystals. And now we're just like, yep, speed bump Imperials, no problem. And we're being called, you know, a one-person army. There's no consequence, no actual show. Is all tell on the consequence of this losing the Blessing of Light. This is not running a dungeon sync. This is not doing some fates or whatever. This is the story in full control of the next encounter you face immediately after this Midgardsormr encounter, and you wipe the fucking floor with these enemies, no problem.
Yep.
A wasted opportunity to actually make this thing count for something that you can feel. It really bothered me that they're once again talking us up.
Yeah, no, we're above it all.
Yep.
We're still untouchable. Yeah, I don't know. Because if they made us, I don't know, weaker in some respect. So if we're fighting a couple of dudes and suddenly we're like overwhelmed, and someone's got to jump in, like a Crystal Brave finds us, they're like, oh shit, and then they help us so we don't die?
Yeah, this could just be like a small instance battle where we just have to fight a guy, then a couple of guys, and just like ramp up the challenge a bit. If the player survives 3 waves of guys, then just like dump on them fully. To
make it basically impossible to win so that we can interject some narrative beat that shows us that we are indeed weaker than we were before.
Yeah.
If they did that, there would have to be a reckoning of some kind to get us back to full strength, because we still have to play the game and do the things and fight the shit.
Well, sure, but there's a difference between being a one-person army and being able to fight some guys. It's just like if you're going into an area that's higher level than you, right? Where you single pull enemies and you don't pull 5 at once and AoE them down.
We had a better example of this while we still had the Blessing of Light when we fought Ratatan.
Yes.
That was terrifying, and that's a really, really hard fight.
Sure.
And that we're blessed to hell and back.
To be fair, Ratatan was a redone fight, so it's not fair to expect OG A Realm Reborn to have that level of quality, but that's, agree that is the feeling that you might need to feel.
Like, make us feel like we're about to be face to face with God or whatever.
Yeah.
Or is it more just like a moment, like a reminder, a humbling moment?
It's half that, but also
it's just in the player's psyche.
That would be good in and of itself, but also don't frame the player character as being a one-person army in the upcoming content until situations may arise that...
the game isn't. Yu Yu Hase is.
Sure, but we live up to that expectation that he sets. That's the problem, I would say. He's like, you're a one-person army, and then yes, we go and be a one-person army immediately after being, quote, disempowered. So, correct, the game's not telling us directly, but I do think that it may as well have, with him talking us up and then us doing the thing he said.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Okay, that's all. Anyways, spoiler, not spoiler, we're going to see a narrative consequence of the Blessing of Light. But again, that's tell, not show. Anyway, moving on.
Mm-hmm.
We roll over some Garleans like speed bumps and we report back.
Yeah, Yu Yu Hase says something about, looking forward to never tussling with Magitech horrors ever again. They made them earn their pay this time, etc., etc. And we should report the all clear to Lieutenant Edelstein, and they will do the same to Alianne. The lieutenant is grateful for our assistance, again, and the Scions were successful against the main column, but one of them decided to stay out there alone, and this is Moenbryda, obviously.
It's the Rogadin lady with the large axe.
Yeah, he's like, she really shouldn't be out there by herself. If you can, you should go check on her. So we go check on her, and she's like, yeah.
We find Moenbryda to the east at the Dalamud's Talons. She's tinkering with the Aetheric Siphon at the base of a crystal cluster. There is a basilisk corpse not too far away from her. We look at it for a second.
The beast seemed peckish, so I gave it a taste of my axe. I know, as Urianger never tires of reminding me. An axe ill becometh the hand of a scholar. What can I say? I like axes. To hear my mother tell it, I came into this world holding one.
She tinkers some more, and the crystal cluster pulses with light. She's done it. The siphon is working.
She's like, did you see it glow? With a little extra tweaking, it'll be ready to hold the ether that we need. But now we just need to fabricate the blade itself. So now we just need to fabricate the blade itself. And she says, I'm not sure how to go about it just yet, but I swear to find a way. I'll put a blade in your hands if it's the last thing I do. At that moment, we turn around quickly because we sense something. And then a voice from the darkness says, she senses me. And an Ascian appears. Moenbryda's like, oh shit, are they onto us?
This Ascian has a mask that looks like a downward pointing spider with sad looking eye holes.
We meet at last, warrior of light.
I am Nabriales. And you have long been a thorn in my side. I suffered the overweening presence of Lahabrea that men might host the power of gods, only for you to undo my hard work.
Nabriales recognizes Moenbryda as a Sharlayan scholar, and therefore a meddler. Moenbryda rushes him, acts at the ready to cut him down, but with a small motion of his hand, he effortlessly repels her. And he turns to us and he's like, clearly I acted in self-defense there. Wait a second. I no longer sense the blessing of light in you. And like, we're just kind of standing there defiantly. And he continues, has the frail Hydaelyn forgotten her champion? Without her blessing, we are no longer a threat. And he also says that the quote-unquote seal is broken. What seal? We don't know. Moenbryda doesn't know. Whatever. He's just kind of talking to himself at this point. And then he continues still and says, it is time to take the staff. What fucking staff? And with the staff, he will rise above them all to take his place at Lord Zodiark's right hand. And then he disappears. So that's the moment you were talking about where it's literally called out. Like, people notice that shit is weird with us, and the Ascians can see it clear as day. That Hydaelyn her presence is gone. We are vulnerable. We are no longer a threat. And that is not a great feeling. As a player, I'm like, well, what are the consequences of this? We don't know yet.
After Nabriales vanishes, Moenbryda asks us what that was all about. We explain she cannot understand him because she does not have the echo. We recap the conversation, and she says, well, that staff thing seems pretty cool, whatever it is. Oh shit, he's talking about Tup Samati, the shattered staff of Master Louis Sois. Vinfilia's in danger. We have to hurry back to the Rising Stones. And we do, and we will leave off there. So Jen,
Yeah.
I got some stuff to say about this seal. Do you have any other thoughts or comments before?
These are basically like Moenbryda musings, but I mean, we've known her for like a very small amount of time. And she's like, well, she's the scion. But what we get from her in no time, that we've gotten from like nobody else, except maybe Thancred, is a moment of like vulnerability. Of her talking about the reason why she returned to Eorzea, about the flack she gets from Urianger and others about carrying an axe around, and she's like, I can wield both an axe and a pen, guys. Like, they're not mutually exclusive. She talks about her mother. It's a lot, and that's really unique. Like, we don't have these conversations with anybody else. So she's immediately just like cool and vulnerable and precious, and she hates Nabriales. So these are all good things.
Thank you, Jen, for those Moenbryda musings, apropos of nothing.
Apropos of, we just spent time with Moenbryda, dude.
Sure. Yeah. I'll take you at face value there.
Yeah. I mean, like, obviously, we spent a lot of time with Alizé in the Binding Coils, which again was a lot of exposition about her and her brother's past and her grandfather's past, and so that was a bonding moment. But we don't like Urianger. I mean, nobody knows anything about that guy. Minfilia,
Moenbryda knows stuff about Urianger. Jen,
sure. I mean, and she's not blabbing his shit all over the place because
he would not like that.
He wouldn't like it. She doesn't have to. She doesn't have to throw her friend under the bus to try to gain clout with the rest of us. Anyway.
Now it's my turn for some seal scowlings.
Okay,
so this seal thing. The seal is broken, so says Nabriales. This allows him to claim Tupsamati from the solar. Jin, what the fuck is a seal? That's rhetorical.
I fucking hope so.
Yes. The seal, Jin, this is a frustrating detail because of how unexplained it is. I'm not talking about in this moment, but in the game in general. It seems that our Warrior of Light being decrystalled and losing the Blessing of Light was also somehow messing up a protective ward that apparently existed over Cyan headquarters, which was carried with them to the new HQ as well.
Huh.
We can probably assume, one, that the staff was protected before we appeared on the scene, because we collected all the crystals in the fairly recent past, and, the staff has been there since the calamity, right? It's not news to the Asians. They could have popped in any time, in theory, to grab it, but they have not because of this so-called seal. The causality of our involvement to the seal is difficult to pin down because of the timeline involved. Honestly, to me, Jen, my conclusion here is that this is one of the A Realm Reborn era mechanics and subplots that got swept under the rug as the overall story took on a stronger direction. As in, there's a lot of plot stuff in A Realm Reborn, especially in the patch series, that kind of gets put aside in favor of the overall direction of the story. They may have had a plan for this seal and the associated mechanics, but I suspect that it comes up here and then never does again because the story direction does not call for more interactions with the seal and its associated mechanics.
So nobody fucking really knows what the fuck.
That is my conclusion, Jen, because I went on a very lengthy research frenzy after this cutscene because I didn't know what the fuck, and I couldn't figure out what the fuck.
Was this mentioned, maybe an offhand comment Minfilia made back in 2.0?
Well, Jen, stay tuned.
All right.
Even the Encyclopedia Eorzea glosses over this event in the story summary. I quote, "Upon sensing that the adventurer was no longer possessed of Hydaelyn's blessing, the Paragon teleported away, seemingly intent on taking advantage of the Scion's vulnerability to steal Tupsamati." Yes, that is what happened in the scene. It tells us nothing about why it happened. Thank you, official textbook of Final Fantasy XIV. The encyclopedia failed me. I then went scouring the internet to see if anyone else had made sense of this. I found several questions, much like my own, and a few theories. Many of them were convoluted or formed with, I guess, a frame of reference earlier on in the story, as in not incorporating metaphysical mechanics that we know of having played through the entire game. The best theory I found on this mechanic was a forum post that speculated that the blessing on the Scion's HQ was granted by Hydaelyn using the energies that were channeled from the elemental crystals and their various locations before we collected them physically. So the energies were being essentially siphoned from these crystals to HQ to protect it from the Asians.
By Hydaelyn?
Yes.
Okay.
That theory tracks with what we know because when we lose Hydaelyn's blessing...
Yeah. No, that whole structure is destroyed.
The seal, not the structure.
Well, is that what that is? I'm talking about the geometry in the void that's holding.
You got to be
the
more
6
specific because the Scion's HQ is a structure too.
It's not. No, I was talking specifically about the when
so you're talking about what you call the sacred geometry, like that weird disc-shaped pattern also vanishes.
Yeah, the curio cabinet of crystals.
So anyway, the top theory I found goes on to say that the crystals were supporting the seal over HQ remotely, essentially.
Right.
But we collected them, and then Midgardsormr banished the crystals. Exactly. So the power source that powered this protective seal was lost on top of our personal blessing of light. That is this theory I found, the most cohesive I have found in my search for answers here. Another possible theory I have, Jin, is tied in actually to what you said about the quote, sacred geometry, that magical seal, the magical shape in the ethereal sea or whatever it is, the void inside of us. It could be that the blessing of light is like a single thing that is bestowed to multiple people. If I get the blessing of light and you get the blessing of light and Philia does, we're all tapping into this one thing, and Midgardsormr may have used our connection to that to go and sabotage the whole deal at the source.
It seems like, yes, there was some kind of reaching in from or by Midgardsormr.
Yes. The problem here is that doesn't fully gel with more information that we learn about the Blessing of Light in a few expansions from now. As in, the blessing gets recontextualized much later as something else that doesn't quite gel with the shared seal mechanic. But again, this is a Realm Reborn mechanics. I guarantee they did not think of its future explanation at this time. I cannot imagine they would have that in mind at this point in the game's story. So again, I'm happy to kind of unfocus my eyes a bit and let it be that, and then let it get gently retconned in the future and not sweat it too much.
Yeah.
But that's the best I got for this ill-explained mechanic. I was dying for specificity because it made no sense just off the cuff that us getting fucked up also fucks up this other location entirely separate, but that's what happened.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's what I got, Jen. That's my seal analysis.
Well, thank you for that.
You are welcome, Jen.
It's more information than we had because we could only guess. Thankfully,
We
Moenbryda
still
was there to
can.
tell us what the staff was about.
We still can only guess, Jen.
Yep. Well,
If you know more, please weigh in.
or even if you don't.
Sure. Do it. Speaking of weighing in, Jen, any more comments from you?
No.
Cool. All right. So next time we will be concluding the patch 2.5 story. After that, we'll be launching into our Blue Mage series. We'll be covering all of the Blue Mage job in A Realm Reborn. So, Jen, if the people want to weigh in, how would they do so?
Oh, I see. Is this the segue?
Yes, Jen. Looks like I inveigled you into giving us our outro.
You don't gotta inveigle shit.
Well,
It's
I did.
gonna happen.
I did anyway.
All right. Well, I've been inveigled, y'all. Here we go. That will do it for today's episode. Thank you all so much for listening and not making vague allusions to some weird seal. If you want to get in touch with us, you can at podreturnffxiv@gmail.com or check the show notes for our Discord. You can hop in there, join us for some group runs, plan some group runs of your own, share your glam, share your pets, have a chat, whatever. Everybody's awesome, and we would love to have you. And we also have our Patreon, patreon.com/podreturnffxiv. And for $1 a month, you get access to the other stuff that we do. That includes the seasonal episodes, which are posted there, and our Final Fantasy XI series, Vana'diel Van Splainer, which will become imminently relevant because of the Dawn Trail Raid series that'll be released, which is heavily Final Fantasy XI pilled. And yeah, with that, we hope you enjoyed the episode. Have a good day or night, and we will see you next time.